Oh, hello everybody, this is Dusty Circuit here for the next installment of the History of My Builds on Autcraft series, or all my builds on Autcraft. And firstly, I would just like to kind of do a bit of a recap, and if you've been following the series this far, you would have seen videos of my very first base that I built when I first joined the server. My second base, or the very first automated base complete with auto sorter and item collection, and from a mining area I had below. My first community farms, of course, the two multi farms, most specifically. My first guardian farm, although that was more of like a personal farm, it never really was open to the public. And my first base that was like really a major collaboration between all of my friends, including Kyla, who had joined Autcraft at around that time, and this was mostly Ninjago's base, and the Four Corners, the amplified jungle base. And for this episode, I'm going to go on to base number 5, which, let's say, was a bit of an interesting one. And there was, this base, I'm just going to tell you that I've had plenty of great memories in it, and I've had quite a few bad memories as well. But I'm going to start with the good, and, when we get to the bad, I'm going to make the best of it. So anyway, this is... I originally made this base I decided to make this base, and what was my idea, and my thought process for doing this base was, back in the Four Corners, I was experiencing a lot of client-side lag. Of course, it being an amplified biome didn't really help that much, and on top of that, there was just really a lot going on, and of course, both entity counts and redstone and hopper counts, and of course, all of those conspired together to cause me lots of lag on my old PC I had at the time, and I think I might have even had some server-side lag as well, but it wasn't that prevalent, or it wasn't that really, it was nowhere near as bad as this base would have been. Well, we're going to get to that later in the video. And, at the time, I kind of got sick of the lag, and I just wanted to start a new base for that reason. And I just kind of went to this. This originally would have been a plains biome that was next to a savanna biome, which I think was mostly over in that direction. And you can't really see it because I have a resource pack that makes the grass all one color, but this, I guess you can tell already by the trees, this was savanna. And over in this area where the base is, and over here would have been just like plains. And so I originally would have built this wall here. I guess I would have originally been going for like a just like some kind of like a fortress or a castle type of feel. And I also built these I meant these to be like gatehouses, and each of these had a piston door, like a large door in it, like. And originally I would have used like a smaller, like I think it was like a 5x4 door or so, but at some point later on in the base I changed it to these doors, which were like a 5x5, but they would open really fast. Like I think I can like a second or two. I think like just over a second. And I remember these doors breaking a lot, and I have no clue if this one works, but guess we'll try it. And this one works, to my amazement. But this one's broken, and that one was never finished. But this was kind of the start of a new design that I wanted to replace all those gates with, which of course it uses slime blocks. And of course I think it was because a lot of those kept breaking, just because of the probably because there was some lag issues like with the server. And my plan at the time was to replace them all with this design, but I never ended up finishing that. And I also built these iron farms, which are since been retired, and of course no longer work in the current version, because of course this is 1.14, and these use the old iron spawning mechanics, where of course villagers you need doors to define a village, and of course now it's basically beds to find a village, and then workstations. And next I would have built this area over here, which actually was my trading hall, if I can find a way in. How this would have worked is, of course, villagers would spawn in this room, and then they get carried up this little elevator. Then they drop in here, and I had a whole bunch. You would request a minecart to go pick the villager up, and then the villager would get dropped off here, so that you could check their trades. And then of course if the villager had good trades, you'd select you flip the lever here so that you could keep the villager, and it would go into the holding cells over there. But if you didn't like the villager, you flip it down here, and then it would send the minecart down to an area where the villager would suffocate before the minecart is returned back to the storage for minecarts. and these holding areas I would have actually designed all by myself. Basically what I did is I came up with a holding cell for villagers that used minecart tracks. And of course how it would work is a villager would go in here, and of course whenever a minecart goes over that detector rail, it would enable an RS NOR latch, which would of course flip this track so that when the next minecart comes in, it'll just go into the next cell. And later on I would have added all this stuff, which this wasn't original. This wiring that's on top would have not have been originally part of the design, but I decided I wanted indicator lights so that I could see which cells were full or not when I was glancing down each hallway. And I actually did so much trading here that I got enough emerald blocks to literally fill these entire floors in with emerald blocks. But of course you could see, I think it was Mod Killer that started removing these, but of course because we needed emeralds, I guess, and we're not using the space anymore. And this obviously would have been a beacon that would go up to the top of that room. And later on, I think it was Mod Killer that really wanted me to build a second level to this, but then at the time I was like, we don't really need more villagers, we have plenty. But because the this level would have held about I think per side probably like 20 villagers per wing, which would be, of course, would be 60 villagers total. But this next level would have upped the capacity to 120 villagers in total. And later on, one of the admins wasn't exactly happy with us kind of later on, because of course there's a rule where players are only allowed to keep 15 villagers because of course the server the lag on the server. But for a while Mod Killer was just like, well, we can have more than that as long as we don't have tons, and as long as you don't have so many villagers that it'll lag us. And I just kind of went with that at the time. But anyway, this trading hall was definitely one of my best. This trading hall really came in handy because when Autcraft had changed its shop system to use. When Autcraft would have changed its shops to the villager shops, of course they use emeralds as the main currency. And of course I figured that if I traded with villagers, like if I used the vanilla trading mechanics to get emeralds from villagers, I could then use those emeralds to buy any resource I want. Because with this change, of course, it brought the ability for anybody to create shops using villagers, but they're at the spawn at the time, which was the spawn that was before the current spawn. I think it was the fourth spawn. The AF had added a bunch of villager shops there, and since I built this trading hall, that would have actually become one of my biggest sources of resources. And in fact, I actually, rather than go mining in the resource world, I would just grind up emeralds here, and then I just use them to buy resources at the shop. And this room over here, actually, I would have, originally this was actually for a minecart dispenser. Like, in fact, one of those old school minecart dispensers that would hold, that actually would just hold the minecarts, like, on minecart tracks. And I made one of those big enough to hold, basically the entire capacity of the storage room of 60 villagers at the time I built that hallway, or that trading hall. And that would have occupied almost this entire room. And I think it would have been probably like around this level here. But later on, well, at the time I did it that way because there was something kind of about the region protection that I didn't know about. But there was this behavior where that's set by default in protections, where if a minecart runs into a cactus, it doesn't break. And of course, now I know that you could actually mod reg to have an admin change I believe it's called the region flags, so that that could be enabled again. But back when I built this, I didn't know about that, and kind of my solution to that was, well, I'll just build one of the old school minecart dispensers, and that's just kind of how I tackled that problem. I mean, it's not the most efficient way to do it, but that was a way to do it that I knew at the time. And of course, along with this trading hall, I would have also built farms. And this used to be storage, but I think it was probably due to the space causing server lag. We had to remove basically almost all of our hoppers that were here. And I actually remember about this melon and pumpkin farm. At the time I built this, I would have been watching, I believe it was the season 4 of Hermitcraft, and one day Mumbo uploaded a video where I think he had built a melon and pumpkin farm that he wanted to use for his villager trading. And also around the time I would have built that trading hall, that was around the time Mumbo was building his villager trading on Hermitcraft, although it was actually a lot smaller than what I built. He just used a system that would just have minecarts in a water stream, but that was like really slow. And I guess at the time I just kind of wanted to just use minecart tracks, even though my design ended up way bulkier than Mumbo's. But I just kind of made it work. But anyway, at the time I built this melon and pumpkin farm, I think Mumbo would have uploaded a video where he actually found a melon and pumpkin farm that I believe Skade actually made. that was like about this size, and it wasn't Eskel's design. This was originally by El Mango, which is because he's known for really like big for making a lot of really like efficient farm designs, and there's also some really kind of big farms as well. And I kind of ended up using a lot of his designs kind of over the years. He's definitely one of my favorite YouTubers alongside Mumbo Jumbo and Ethos Lab. And I would have also built a sugarcane farm that you could see here, and a cactus farm as well. And over here, I tried to make one of those farms that where villagers would harvest the crops, but I think it ended up I never really got it working, and I ended up not doing much with that. But this sugarcane farm here, I essentially copied Mumbo's design from Hermitcraft, and this cactus farm is solo a design that I don't remember originally when it was created, but must have been really early in the game, and so many players have copied it that not very many people even know the original creator of it. It's just kind of in like the common like player base now. And it's just kind of a design everybody knows. And these farms were actually able to be. I put these farms close to the base so that they could be loaded the entire time when I was building here. So that, of course, after I'd be building over here for a while, these farms would produce enough crops or that I could go trade with villagers and get emeralds. And later on, when the Vindicators and Evokers were first added, of course their spawn eggs were available on the shop on the sites, and then basically anybody could buy the eggs and then convert spawners to be able to farm those mobs and basically get emeralds that way. And for a while, I actually kept trading with villagers because I wanted to do it the vanilla way, but I eventually ended up switching over to those farms because it did ended up being a lot simpler and easier and quicker. And eventually this room was converted into, well, I believe it was Mod Killer wanted to do and I think Ninjago also had a bit of help in this, but we wanted to build like a big movie theater kind of a thing, but that never ended up working out, and eventually I actually used this, I built these here, which my original like plan for these storage units would have been like a storage for melons and pumpkins using shulkers, but the amount of shulkers that would be required to fill a storage this large would, of course, there were shulker spawners. Like, you could make a farm that would spawn shulkers in and then get shulker cells that way, but I didn't actually have one of those farms back then. Though I did eventually end up making one. And this area over here was I kind of took some inspiration from Etho's Let's Play, where kind of at the time he actually uploaded an episode in which he builds a storage system for all his enchanted books, where you just have a panel of buttons that are labeled with each enchant, and you press that button and you request that book to use. And the storage for the enchanted books would have been here. And this was just one of those things that would have been cool, but of course a little bit impractical for kind of just for the average player, because it's just a lot easier and makes more sense to just have just have chests where you'd organize all your enchanted books, and rather than just have all this redstone to do it only semi-automatically, because you can't auto sort books. So it's like whenever you request books from here, you still have to put them back manually. But I did end up using the system a little bit. But kind of this was kind of built later on in the space, and kind of I didn't end up using it that much. And this originally would have been like a hidden staircase. Well, because I had the idea that I was going to have like a vault where I'd store all my valuables, like emeralds and diamonds. But of course, we've since transferred things from this base to the new bases. Or like the base that me and Nin are currently sharing, and Modkiller had a big part in. This was also inspired by Mumbo. He built these combo locks in one of his like Let's Build series, where he built I think he built like an evil lair in creative that was like hidden and had lots of redstone contraptions, and that's kind of where I got that inspiration from. This would have been like a little like kind of redstone puzzle, and I think Nin made this, and I think it was possibly for my birthday, I think, and it was really kind of a fun challenge. And they had lots of fun solving it. And this was just kind of like I had access for all the redstone back here. And as you can see, quite a lot went into like this is just for the villager requesting, and then that's all the minecarts. Like this would have led to like into the Minecart Dispenser, but of course that now goes into this area, which is now where minecarts are stored. And also this trading hall actually have a reject feature where there'd be buttons that are on the bottom, like each of these where you would press, and if you don't want to keep a certain villager anymore, it would drop that villager down, I think onto these tracks, and then that would go all onto this line that would basically, that's where the villagers would die, and that's also where the villagers who you reject at the spawner area would go. And then the minecart would get recycled back in the storage. And this is where things kind of get interesting with this base. And this is the biggest auto sorter I've ever built on Autcraft ever. And I would have built this with a mod killer actually. Well, kind of here's how it went. So basically, this was kind of around the time I was first actually considering getting into voice chatting, and Discord was not really a thing yet, but I knew that my sister chats with a lot of her friends on Skype, so I decided I'd get into Skype. And of course I set up the account for that, and then for a little while kind of Ninjago really wanted to talk to me, but I kind of at first was just a little bit shy. Either I was shy or I didn't have a headset yet, and eventually I did get a headset, and then me and Ninjago started talking for the first time, and then soon after Mod Killer followed, and then a little bit after that, Poison Cow Chicken actually invited us to a creative server of his where he was doing redstone. And yes, I know that's technically against the rules, but we kind of found ways around that, and of course we had our fun over there doing redstone. And this was before, and mind you, this was before Autcraft Creative. So Autcraft did not have a creative server back then, so that was kind of our only decision. That was our only choice. So we just kind of took what we could get. And anyway, and I think after that, Modkiller actually started hosting his own creative server, and which we actually ended up using for quite a while, up until Autcraft Creative became a thing. And one of the first projects that we designed in Creative would have been this auto sorter. And so we kind of designed that. I think it would have taken around maybe a week on the creative server to build this, or possibly less, because back then we actually had of course on that server we had world edits, so of course we were able to build it really quickly and creative, and then In survival, we actually would have put a beacon. I think we would have dug down this, like down a shaft there, and then we put a beacon down here. And then I would have dug out this entire room, and then we would have started building the storage room. But this was kind of a time when, unfortunately, Modcure and Ninjago started to not get along too well. Okay, so what happened was, like, Modcure really wanted to go ahead with the design that we had come up with in the creative world, but Ninjago kind of had an idea of his own that he really wanted to do. And I think that it would have had to do with these kind of staircases at each end of the storage room. And like Nin had his own design, and then me and Modcure had our design that we did in the creative world, and we kind of got into a bit of a fight over that, but eventually we settled on the design that you're looking at right now, where we kind of have a staircase that would go up, and then more stairs that would go up to the next level. And then and I would have used iron from those little iron farms that we had. And we only ended up building 2 of them, but by about that time we had gathered up enough iron that we were able to start making this big auto sorter. And I want to say the actual, like, full capacity of it, like the amount of items it would hold, was around 384 items, or just kind of under 400. And this would have been the biggest auto sorter I have ever made on Autcraft, and I think I even would go farther to say that this was the biggest auto sorter that I built in survival, period. And of course, this one is using the kind of the improved sorter design that Impulse came up with. And anyway, so what kind of happened was we actually did end up getting the auto sorter finished, and we actually moved all our items into it, and we were able to get it so that it would sort most of our items. And I think we had been using this for roughly probably 3 to 5 months or so, but at one point the server started having a lag. Like, some players who have like when we've been using the storage room have been noticing the TPS dropping on the server. And of course of course by that point I think even a couple of the admins started getting on our case about the lag. And at kind of one of my first, and I think they were like, you should fix this now, or either fix this or remove the auto sorter, or whatever. And what we did at first was I ended up changing the item elevator design. Like, at first, I first built this with an item elevator that used droppers, and it actually had redstone clocks for every single dropper. And And that design worked because, like, at the time I just didn't know what other item elevator designs to use. And my first idea was, well, why not I just replace that item elevator with one of these item elevators that would just shoot the items from a dispenser into a glass tube. And of course, this was when Mojang patched the thing with fences, but they added in that you could shoot items into glass using a dropper, and that's kind of what we ended up using. And then that kind of fixed the issue for a little while, but I don't remember if it was because the server got more plugins added, or if we had added more things to the base that would cause more lag. But at one point the TPS started dropping again, and well, this time there really wasn't any of it. We weren't able to fix the problem, and eventually it came to we had to just decommission this item sorter, and that's what ended up that's really what kind of ended up with making us move on from the space. And like, had it not have been for the sorter decommissioning, I would have continued this space for at least a little bit longer. But of course, this was still when I had my old computer, and back then I would have probably had I would have been probably getting like 25, 30 FPS in this room with my render distance at 6 chunks. I currently have my render distance at like 10 chunks, and I'm still getting like this area is still pretty laggy, but at least after we remove the hoppers, at least it's not lagging on the server end anymore. And of course, also in this space, I would have built a auto smelter, and I think to date this is the biggest auto sorter I've ever built in survival. And this was roughly about 64 furnaces per side, so about 128 furnaces in total. And my idea with this is I would just load items in, like I would have just loaded items in both sides if I wanted the full speed, or if I wanted to smelt 2 different items at once, I could do it in one side and do the other item on the other side. And I would have used this part of the base quite a lot. And this would have just been for miscellaneous storage, which surprisingly still cluttered with items. Not too much on this side. This actually was another kind of a funny memory of this space. Well, I guess also slightly terrifying to me, but well, I had built of course, this is like an AFK Cobblestone Generator, and the idea would have been is you just would sit here and AFK mine cobblestone, but of course, This would have worked faster with a haste 2 beacon, but of course you can still use it without haste 2. And one day, kind of while the so one day, when I was, of course, when we were having the lag issues with the sorter, I kind of sat myself AFK in this farm for, I think it was roughly around 30 minutes to an hour or so, and well, it was almost enough time for me. I think it was about enough time for me to use about maybe 2/3 of durability of a diamond pickaxe with Unbreaking 3, and by around probably 40 minutes or so into my probably 40 to 50 minutes or so into the AFK mining session, a lot of players would have noticed the lag on the server, and I think I remember the lowest the TPS ever went to probably would have been around 10 or 9 or so, which is pretty bad. And of course, normally TPS should be at 20, so that kind of gives you an idea of how bad it was. And I think one of the staff actually counted the number of hoppers in my base, and that number came to around probably 3,000, probably around 3,000 hoppers, or possibly maybe almost 4,000, but it was quite a lot. But the majority of those, like about 80% of those hoppers would have been the sorter. And so anyway, what happened with this cobblestone farm was, one day I was actually AFK mining cobblestone because I wanted to get furnaces, because I wanted to do the trick of putting furnaces on top of hoppers to which would have supposedly reduced the amount of lag they create, but some people have myth busted and proven that doesn't really do much of anything. But at the time I just decided to try it. And so anyway, what would have happened is I was AFK at this cobblestone farm for roughly 40 to 50 minutes, and about 45 to 50 minutes in or so, I think players would have noticed lag on the server, because I was also loading the sorter at a time when there was quite a few players on the server. I think probably 15 or 20 players or so. And I actually was just kind of sitting back on my bed, and of course I was still watching my player AFK harvest cobblestone. So what I did was I actually did the trick where you'd reassign your mouse click to a key on your keyboard, and then you'd put some heavy object to weigh down the key so that you keep mining. And basically, well, what happened was AF actually, Autism Father actually teleported to me, and he kind of TP'd me away from the farm, because, and I guess what he was trying to do is, well, so I would get kicked, and then the server would stop lagging, and because the sorter would unload, and like this AF actually teleporting and kind of moving me away from the farm. That actually happened right in front of my eyes. Like I was just in my room and then AF teleported me and I was like, what? What's going on? And then of course I got back in my chair, I got back in front of the computer, and then of course AF was like, Dusty, your disorder was like causing lag. I needed to do this, and well, AFK mine cobble somewhere else. I think that might have been with. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but anyway, it was kind of at this point, it's just a funny memory, but of course, it wasn't funny to him because it was causing lag. But anyway, so what ended up happening with this space was we just kind of abandoned it. I think Mod Killer. So we would have scrapped this for all the hoppers that were in it, and then Mod Killer would have went to the end because he actually came up with an idea to build what we would call the Station X base, which is one of my coolest bases, which is bar none, has to be my coolest base on the server that I built. Though it wasn't just me, I built it with Modcore and Jago. But this space just really kind of went down in history. It's just one of the bases to kind of ruin my reputation on Autcraft because I didn't learn from my mistake with my second base causing lag, and I even built something in the fourth base that caused lag, and then this base went on to cause more lag, and then by then we just kind of moved on to do something, and of course we moved away from redstone, and then we just kind of went to doing something that looked cool, and that was kind of what the end base ended up being. Okay, have another kind of a story to share with you about what happened in the space. And at first, I had an idea to make. Well, what originally happened here was I discovered a set of it's basically I had discovered a pair of cave spider spawners that were right next to they were kind of right next to each other, and then what originally my plan was I think I wanted to build a skeleton farm because I think it was a skeleton farm because I had some farms in mind that were going to use bone meal, and I think I wanted to get bone meal for something, though I don't remember what. So I started clearing the area around the spawners, and of course I torched them up so that they wouldn't spawn mobs, and then I took a break from the project for a day, and I think it was like a day or two after that, me and Modcore discovered that apparently Ninjago claimed them and decided to build farms for his head collecting with them. And of course, this was when heads were first added to Autcraft, like the head plugin was first added. And me and Modcore were just really upset with Ninjago because he essentially did this without our permission, and he just, I mean, I can't blame him if he just didn't know, if he didn't know we were using those spawners, but then again, like, I had a beacon set up there, and I was in the process of clearing them, and I'm like, why couldn't have he just asked us at the time? But at the time, he decided he was just gonna build his own farm there. And, well, I don't remember. I think Modkiller would have found these originally, and I think he may have said something about where he could use them, but I think it was some big misunderstanding that led him to think he could build his own farm there, but that wasn't what we had in mind. And then because I think we may have help opt or mod ragged, I don't remember which of the two, but I think it was help opt, and then of course one of the admins came, and it's one of the older admins that isn't on now, who isn't on anymore, and I kind of don't really want to give names because this is an admin that left and are no longer part of the Autcraft community, but so what kind of happened was we kept stating our case that we wanted this farm back, we wanted the spawners changed back, but what ended up happening is I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but the admin just ended up like defending it under Ninjago's favor, and well, we didn't exactly have proof that it was ours first, and just this big misunderstanding that just got both of us mad, and that was one of the things that hurt Modkiller's relationship with Ninjago, and I guess a little bit of mine too, but me and Nin are still great friends to this day, but unfortunately Modkiller and Ninjago have kind of parted ways, and they don't talk to each other anymore. And it was mostly because Nin's all about the head collecting, and Modkiller just doesn't agree with that. He doesn't agree with some of things he said with staff, but we still get along great to this day, and it's just yeah, it's just kind of sad, but I guess it's just one of those things that would happen in life. And of course, but later on, I think Ninjago was finished using those spawners, so later on, and like when 1.9 came, or I think it may have been 1.10, but I actually built no, this would have been 1.11 because I would have built this was a shulker farm that I wanted to get shulker shells from, and of course this is no longer working because I think in 1.14 there was a change where shulkers no longer teleport away from glass, and some other players built new shulker farms, but I've never gotten around to changing this farm yet, and this design would have originally been by Exuma Boy, and that's where I got the inspiration to build this design, but of course it's no longer working, as you can see. And I used to actually have shops here, but of using the villagers, but I eventually moved them to another area, which then ended up no longer being in use. And there were kind of other spawners in this area, which Ninjago ended up making into farms. And this over here was actually our very first Vindicator farm. And I would have started using this for emeralds, but but eventually I think I wanted a faster Vindicator farm with more spawners, so I eventually found one that was 3 spawners, and I built that. And then later on it got replaced by a 5 spawner Vindicator farm. And and there were some other farms here, like I think there was like a gas farm here at one point, and I think there was like I think there would have been llamas here at one point, and though I mostly used this area for the Vindicator farm. This pet collecting, this wasn't really my thing. That was Ninjago's thing. And later on in the base, I decided that I wanted to expand the melon and pumpkin farms, but this build got halted when we abandoned the base, and it's just been left in that state ever since we left it. So anyway, I've been kind of saving this area for last for a good reason, but let's kind of get on with this, shall we? This was a part of the base that originally I built this because I think it was Modkiller had an idea that we were gonna do a music disc farm, and so like this just originally would have been a mine shaft with spawners, as cave spider spawners, and this area, of course, this would be for skeletons, and that would spawn skeletons, and this over here would spawn creepers. And then I had like some water streams and a water elevator that would get the mobs over to here, making this, and then that would go into a specially designed chamber where skeletons, where basically the skeletons would stand like in the back, and then the creepers would be in the front. But this kept blowing, but I ended up having it keep blowing up on me, and I never was able to. I fixed it a few times, but then I think at one point it just blew up so bad that I just never was able to fix it again, or at least I never put time into fixing it. And this was before I got Schematica, so, and I mean, I think I actually did have a prototype of this that I would have built in a creative world, but the version of this I ended up building on Autcraft ended up being different from the one in the creative world, and I think like I just stopped using it because it just kept blowing up on me, and I just couldn't figure out how to stop that. But I'm actually looking into building one of these on ACO, so that I could sell the music discs to my shop, because music packs are really becoming popular on Autcraft Obsidian with the events. And if I were to start, I figured, well, if I were to start selling music discs, that would give me quite an opportunity for that. Like to make money off of that. And I never actually ended up selling any of the music discs in this farm. Like, we would have had plans to make a shop, but that kind of never ended up happening. And they would have had a beacon down here as well. This would have actually been like a creeper farm. Like, at one point, I think I've actually diverted the water stream from the creeper farm so that I could I could farm gunpowder. And Autcraft actually had a community mob farm, but sometimes, like, I would want to be able to I don't really remember what I wanted lots of gunpowder for. I think, like, think it was because I wanted to make fireworks, and while Autcraft did have its own fireworks, I would have I kind of wanted to do my own fireworks, because again, at the time, this would have given me another chance to do redstone, which is kind of one of my biggest interests in this game. And this was yet another base in which I went all in with redstone, and especially with that auto sorter and that trading room. And I mean, had it not have been for the server lag, I would have kept that auto sorter. But I mean, just being a multiplayer server, it's of course something we have to put up with, unfortunately. And at this point in time, I had to admit I made some bad decisions, and of course one of those being AFK pools. Well, of course Autcraft strictly has a rule against bypassing the AFK timer, but that's because I really wanted gunpowder for my fireworks. I may have actually resorted to, I think, of course, it's I don't remember where the AFK pool would have been, but I think it would have been somewhere like in this area, but of course since been removed. And I think in a few other farms I had made those, and in one of those farms the admins actually did bust me for that, and that wasn't fun. But speaking of not playing by the rules, this brings me to, well, if you're looking at this room right now and you're wondering what I built here, well, let's just say I got a little bit carried away. And I may have built one of those contraptions of course most people know by as lag machines. And, well, if you haven't guessed by the title, or I mean it's kind of what it says on the tin, it's, well, a whole bunch of redstone that would intentionally cause lag on a server. Yeah, I am really ashamed of this one. And I don't even remember why I built it. It was just I want to remember it was either I wanted to test the limits of the server, or that I think it would have been after the spawner incident, and I think I was just mad and wanted to take out my aggression somehow, or I was just bored and wanted to do something fun. But either of those ways is, yeah. And what I would have built here was a bunch of like a whole bunch of sticky pistons with glowstone on top, and that was all hooked up to a clock. And if you flip the lever, well, say goodbye to 20 ticks per second. And I think the worst that thing ever did, like, I think TPS would have dropped to around maybe 12 or so, but I think what would have happened was I would have purchased all of the materials using the shops, like nothing I would have went out and mined for. It was either shops or the mob farms, because I needed slime balls as well. And, well, I think I built this in maybe 2 hours, and tested it maybe twice, if at most. And I think one time it was even when Sadie was hosting an event, which, man, what was I thinking? But what ended up happening with this was, well, not what you think. I actually did not get in trouble. Well, and you're thinking, well, how? Well, I don't know how this happened, but the most I would have ran this for on those 2 times would have been probably 20 minutes at most. And, like, well, because the site, like, the TPS on the site would take like about 5 minutes to update. But I think it was only on for 15 minutes, maybe 20 at a time at most. And then this kind of just sat for about a week, or maybe a week or two. And I think what ended up eventually happening was Ninjago had discovered it. And, well, at the time, this would have been when we first were on Discord, and I think we just had our own like private Discord group or Discord call, and I think it was just a group with just me, Modcore, and Ninjago, and Ninjago posted like a screenshot of this there, and, well, like the instant I saw that being posted, my heart sank, and then I was like, oh crap, I better reverse this now, or else I'm getting in big giant trouble. And now then basically what and I just had to get myself out of that situation. So and so basically just a minute after Nin would have posted that, I would have just ran down here and just tore the whole thing down. And I think it probably took me half an hour to do it, but I tore the entire lag machine down, and of course and all the materials I put into building it would have found their way into other projects. But yeah. And then I was expecting admin confrontation at some point, but surprisingly that never came. And, well, at that point I was like, well, I'm never going to do that again. And I just moved on with my life. And of course that day after I tore it down, I was still shaking like a leaf and my heart was racing. But I was lucky I didn't. I want to think the punishment for something like this. So it would have probably been probably the first offense would be possibly a 2-week ban, if at least, or maybe even possibly even whitelist removal, depending on the circumstance. And I'm just fortunate that didn't happen to me. But no, never am I doing this again. That had to be the stupidest thing I've ever done on Autcraft to date. And although there are a few more other times I did get in trouble with the staff, but at least it was not for another one of those contraptions. It was for farms. But anyway, I think what would have went on was that was just a time where I feel like everybody goes through a time in their life when they just do stupid decisions for either for fun, or they want to. I guess they just want to get attention somehow, or it's because of peer pressure, and I do not remember what the reason is I built that thing, and well, I'm just lucky it did not. I'm just lucky I it didn't get me in any. It didn't cause any irreparable damage. So let's just put it that way. And in fact, I hope no other players have built lag machines on Autcraft ever. And then, in fact, I urge nobody to do that, because that's just. It's one thing to just have a big giant farm that causes lag on the server, but that's just but causing it intentionally, that's like advanced rule breaking right there. And I didn't even mean to be on the subject that long, but just anyway, I just kind of wanted to get that out of my system, because I kept it a secret for this long, but it's just, since it was a big mistake that I learned from, and I did learn from that mistake. And I even corrected myself before the staff got involved. But anyway, And and what ended up actually happening with the sorter was, actually, I think one of the admins actually helped us remove all the hoppers. I remember that. And then after that, we just kind of dumped that whole base and we moved on to the end base. And anyway, that was just kind of this entire base. And hopefully you've enjoyed this video. And unfortunately, I didn't mean for I had a lot to cover in this video, so it ended up being this long. Well, anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video, and we had lots to cover, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed this tour of another what once was another great base, but turned out to be one of my worst blunders on Autcraft. And this is not the first one to happen. There were other farms that I've done that were ambitious and, let's just say, attracted the wrong attention. And anyway, remember to rate, comment, like, and subscribe. And of course, thanks for watching the video. And this is Dusty Circuit signing out. Bye.